Thank you for watching. Subscribe on Betrayed Man's Diary for more stories. I've kept this story to myself for years, not because it's some deep, painful trauma I can't get over, but because some things are better when they marinate. You watch them long enough, they stop being memories and start becoming weapons. And I don't waste weapons. This one's about my ex, the mother of my children, my former partner, my co-conspirator in a life that we both pretended to enjoy until it all began to rot. Let's call her Amy. We had just bought a house together, small, suburban, freshly painted but already haunted. That kind of place. The kind people drive past and say, "Oh, they've got it all figured out." The truth was, I had plans. She had fantasies. We were never on the same page, just in the same book long enough for no one to notice. Amy had recently been promoted to a salaried position at the assisted living facility she worked at. The kind of job that comes with a new badge, a slightly bigger desk, and a misplaced sense of pride. She was proud of it. She was beaming, actually. She kept saying things like, "This changes everything," and, "It finally feels like I'm doing something real." I congratulated her, hugged her, poured her wine that night. Internally, I filed it away. A new position meant new people. New faces. New routines. More hours. More excuses. It didn't take long before she started talking about someone at work. A guy named Ryan, worked in the kitchen, according to her. She brought him up like he was some background character. Said he had issues with his ex and was a little dramatic, but harmless. That name, Ryan, it was planted like a seed. And I don't forget seeds. That's something about me most people never realize. I remember everything. Names, dates, tones of voice. The way someone glances away mid-conversation. I keep it all in my back pocket. I don't always say what I'm thinking. But I file it. Because the thing about people is, they're predictable. Give them time, they repeat themselves, their lies, their slip-ups, their habits. At first, everything still seemed fine. Normal. Sex wasn't as frequent, but life gets in the way, right? She was tired. The kids had soccer practice. Her schedule changed. I didn't push. Didn't ask too many questions. I watched instead. She got less affectionate. Not just physically, but emotionally. Her texts became more transactional. Her eyes weren't meeting mine at the dinner table. She was distant, not angry, not cold, just gone in a way that people only are when they've already found somewhere else to go. The real red flags came with her phone. It was glued to her hand. Constant texting. Quiet smiles while staring at the screen. The phone face down on the table, locked every time she left the room. It used to buzz freely, now it barely lit up unless she was holding it. I noticed. I always notice. Then came the bathroom routine. That was the one that truly pulled me out of any delusion that things were fine. She used to be quick, efficient. In and out. No nonsense. But suddenly, she started disappearing for 20 minutes at a time. Said her stomach was acting up. Took her phone in every time. I could hear the occasional laugh from behind the door. Not a pained groan. Not frustration. Laughter. I knocked once, early on. "You okay?" I asked. "Yeah. Just give me a sec." 25 minutes later, she emerged like nothing had happened. No apology. No explanation. Just a rinse of her hands and a half-smile. I started timing it. Logging it mentally. I knew it wasn't stomach problems. And she wasn't watching TikToks. She was texting. Maybe sexting. I didn't need the full transcript, the rhythm alone told me everything. She also began dressing up more for work. At first, I complimented her, told her she looked good. And she did. But it wasn't for me. She was ironing blouses she hadn't worn in over a year. Buying new makeup. Wearing lipstick again, not for me, not for some retirement home, but for someone else. Ryan. That name rang louder now. Every time she said she was running late or grabbing a few things after work, I thought of that name. I didn't accuse her. Didn't ask. That's not how I work. Confrontation is a waste if you don't have control of the outcome. So I waited. Waited for the cracks to widen. Because they always do. And the difference between me and most guys? I don't wait to catch someone cheating so I can cry about it. I wait so I can use it. Because if you're going to lie to me, if you're going to look me in the eyes and talk about promotions, dinner plans, weekend getaways, while playing footsie with someone else on company time, then you better believe I'm going to make sure when it burns, you're standing in the middle of it, holding the matchbook. I wasn't sure yet if Amy was cheating. But I was already planning what I'd do when I found out she was. It was a Thursday night. She told me she was going over to her friend Becca's to unwind, just the girls, nothing serious, she said. Laughed it off like she needed the break more than oxygen. I told her fine. Gave her space. Pretended like I wasn't thinking about how often Becca's place had been coming up lately. Here's the thing. I don't get jealous. Jealousy is for people who still care in the way that leaves them vulnerable. I don't get jealous, I get observant. So when I heard the car pulling into the driveway later that night, I didn't react right away. I just waited. The engine was still running after she pulled in. 1 minute. Then 5. Then more. I walked to the front window, moved the blinds just slightly, just enough to see the reflection off her windshield. That's when I saw her, sitting there, grinning at her phone like she was watching a rom-com unfold. It wasn't the smile she gave me anymore. Her phone was tilted slightly upward, FaceTime, I assumed. Or maybe speakerphone. Her lips were moving slowly, like she was savoring the conversation. Her eyes, glassy in that warm, I'm not here right now, kind of way. At first, I told myself not to overthink it. Maybe it really was Becca. Maybe they were laughing about something they forgot to say earlier. But the minutes kept passing. That car sat humming outside for what had to be 20 minutes. She finally came inside, phone no longer in her hand, keys dangling from her fingers like she hadn't just been somewhere else entirely moments ago. She smiled when she saw me, the fake kind. I know you're going to ask something, and I already have an answer, kind. Who were you talking to? I asked, flat, not accusing. She blinked, like she hadn't prepared for me to ask so directly. Then, oh, just a friend from work. I can show you the number if you want. That made me pause. She offered it too quickly. Like she knew I'd ask. Like it was rehearsed. I shook my head. No need. Could it have been the truth? Maybe. But the speed of the answer, the immediate offer to prove it, that told me more than any phone screen would have. She was scared I'd look. That meant the name stored in her contacts wasn't the one she said aloud. I could have taken the phone. I could have looked. But I don't play my hand that fast. When people know you're watching, they get smarter. So I said nothing more about it. But from that night on, something changed. She did. The woman who used to greet me at the door, who once texted me, "I miss you," when I was only 10 minutes late, she was gone. In her place was someone who barely noticed me. She started snapping at me for no reason. Little things. The dishes aren't done. You forgot the wipes in the diaper bag. You didn't remind me to move the laundry. Petty, sharp-edged complaints that felt more like deflections than real problems. And I realized what was happening, she was trying to pick fights. Trying to turn the tide, make me the villain in her version of events. That way, whatever she was doing in secret, it wouldn't feel like betrayal to her. It'd feel like escape. That's a common pattern. You disconnect. You cheat, emotionally or physically. But you don't want to feel guilty, so you manufacture resentment. You blame the person who's already suspicious of you. You make them out to be controlling, paranoid, distant, cold. Except I wasn't any of those things. I was just watching. And that drove her even crazier. She started pulling back from the kids, too. At first, I thought she was just tired. Then I saw the pattern: more screen time for them, fewer bedtime routines, more handoffs to me. Homework, baths, appointments. She slowly stopped taking initiative. I picked up the slack. No complaints. Because I wanted her comfortable. I wanted her distracted. I wanted her confident that I wasn't going to push, that I wasn't catching on. But I was. Every time she looked at her phone and turned slightly away, I watched the angle. Every time she said, "I have to stay late," and showed up home right on time but with different earrings or lipstick slightly faded, I made a note. Every time she kissed me without eye contact, I memorized the weight of that silence. I don't always speak when I should. But I always remember. And by then, I was remembering everything. Because eventually, she'd forget something. And I would be ready. Suspicion doesn't always come in loud. Sometimes it shows up in a whisper. And that night, the one with the so-called pop-up shift, it whispered loud enough to shake my ribs. Amy came home that afternoon unusually quiet, pacing a little, not agitated, not yet, but like she was waiting for a moment. The kind of moment when someone wants to give you news without making it sound like news. Finally, she said, "They might need me to go by the facility around 10 tonight." I looked up from my book. Didn't say anything at first. She filled the silence. Just for a bit. Apparently they've been getting complaints that some of the overnight staff haven't been wearing uniforms. So they want me to show up unannounced and send people home if they're out of dress code. I raised an eyebrow. I didn't have to speak, my face did it for me. She noticed. It's just a random check-in. They're short-staffed and need someone reliable. Reliable. That word felt like a punchline. There were 3 problems with her little midnight mission. First, what kind of facility, especially one that handles vulnerable, elderly residents, doesn't have a dedicated overnight supervisor? Why are salaried day shift coordinators being sent on surprise visits at 10 p.m.? It didn't add up. Second, Amy doesn't move for anything once she's home. Doesn't matter if it's raining, snowing, or on fire outside, if it's past 8 p.m. and not directly fun or relaxing, she's not interested. I've seen her skip family parties and claim migraines to avoid errands. So now suddenly, she's volunteering for a ghost shift in sweatpants. Third, and this was the detail that tied everything together, she was too convincing. Not in what she said. In how she said it. She was working not to sound suspicious. Texting me every 10 minutes, giving live updates like some overly communicative teenager on their first solo trip out of the house. Just pulled in. Talking to Sam from second shift. Think I might help out with some paperwork for a bit. Unprompted. Like she wanted to flood the air with words so I wouldn't ask for silence. That's when I knew, she wasn't updating me to make me feel safe. She was performing. But I played along. I responded calmly, wished her luck. Said nothing skeptical. Nothing sarcastic. Because I wanted her to feel like she'd pulled it off. Because when people think they've gotten away with something, they get sloppy. And I needed sloppy. Before she left, she did something else that stuck with me, she took a shower. That might not sound like much, most people like to be clean before going anywhere. But this wasn't her usual pre-bed rinse. This was a full scrub. She used the expensive body wash she reserves for special nights. The one she'd forgotten I knew the smell of. She dried her hair. Put on sweats and a t-shirt, casual enough to look unthreatening, but still fresh, clean, deliberate. She looked more polished for a uniform check than she had for our last date night. I didn't say a word. She left around 9:50 p.m. That was the last I heard for nearly an hour. No updates. No, I'm finishing up paperwork. No, heading out now. Just silence. When my phone finally buzzed, it was after 11. On my way home now, she texted. No explanation for the gap. No apology. Just a casual check-in like the previous hour hadn't happened. And here's what really burned into my brain: she didn't shower when she got home. She came in, dropped her keys, kicked off her shoes, and went straight to the couch. Like it was nothing. No urgency. No awareness of the fact that she'd been working in a supposedly unsupervised facility around a bunch of allegedly dress code-defying staff. A place that would logically be grimy, sweaty, uncomfortable. Not somewhere you show up fresh, stay for an hour, and come home without even needing to wash your hands. That part stuck with me. Because if this was a cover for cheating, if she was going to see someone, wouldn't she want to clean up after? That's what threw me off. The timing didn't make sense. Showering before you cheat. I sat there on the couch, watching her scroll through her phone while reruns played in the background. She laughed at something on screen like nothing had happened. And that's when I realized, she wasn't cleaning up before cheating. She was cleaning up to arrive looking good. She wanted to show up smelling like something inviting. She showered not for sanitation, but for seduction. It wasn't what she did when she got home that mattered. It was what she didn't do. No signs of stress. No exhaustion from dealing with unruly employees. No leftover adrenaline from writing people up or sending them home in the dark. Just calm, rehearsed normalcy. Too normal. The kind of normal that's built like a stage prop, looks solid from the front, but it's just cardboard and duct tape holding it together behind the curtain. And me? I wasn't angry. Not yet. I was just taking notes. Because sooner or later, the curtain was going to fall. And I'd be the one holding the spotlight. Eventually, it always comes to a confrontation. But this one was different. Because by the time we got there, I wasn't angry. I was ready. Things had been boiling for a while. Silent fights. Passive-aggressive mornings. Nights when she'd turn away from me in bed like the wall offered her something I couldn't. The more I confronted her, the more she deflected. And I don't mean with clever excuses. No, Amy went for the throat. You're paranoid. You're losing your mind. You need help. That last one. That one stuck. Because she didn't just dismiss my suspicions, she made them my responsibility. Like I was the danger. Like my questions were a mental illness that required intervention. And I'll admit it, she got in my head. She said it with such calm, calculated concern that I almost believed her. Almost. So I did what any good monster in the making does, I leaned into it. Told her maybe she was right. Started Googling therapists. Left pamphlets lying around. Played the part of the guilt-ridden husband spiraling into delusion. She softened. She started acting like I was fragile. It made her sloppy. And then came that day. We were headed to Home Depot, some minor house errand she insisted needed to be handled together. Fine. We took her car, which was perfect. Because I knew something she forgot, her Bluetooth always stayed synced to the system. Every call, every contact, every initial, all of it popped up on that screen like a confession. We hadn't even pulled out of the driveway when the car rang. Incoming call, RM. And just like that, her mood shifted. Her eyes darted to the dashboard, thumb shot toward the screen, and she immediately declined the call. Not even a glance in my direction. Like she was trying to erase the moment from existence. I didn't say a word. Not then. But I watched her body language. The way she adjusted in her seat. The slight tremor in her voice when she asked if I remembered to bring the measuring tape. The way she said, RM, like it was just a blip, like that wasn't the name she forgot to hide. The thing is, she never initials contacts. She writes full names. Always has. Her contact list is neat, organized, obsessively labeled. But this one was buried behind initials. That told me everything. So I played along. We did our shopping. She laughed. She pretended to care about curtain rods. I pretended not to notice that her hands were shaking slightly when she held her phone. Later that day, I made my move. I'm gonna head to Walmart, I told her. Your car's behind mine. I'll just take yours. She didn't hesitate. Just tossed me the keys. Big mistake. I got in, shut the door, and went straight to her contacts list. Scrolled to RM, jotted down the number. Didn't call it. Didn't text. Just stored it like a loaded chamber. That night, while she was brushing her teeth, I locked the bathroom door and opened up Been Verified on my phone. Typed in the number. And there it was. Ryan. The same Ryan from the kitchen. The same name she'd casually mentioned weeks ago when talking about funny work stories. The one with baby mama drama. The one I flagged months earlier. So now it was time. Not to explode. Not to accuse. To trap. I walked into the bedroom like nothing had changed. She was under the blanket, scrolling. I sat on the edge of the bed. Hey, who was that called you earlier? I saw the initials on your car screen. RM. Who's that? She didn't blink. Oh, that was Robin, my supervisor. I nodded. Let it sit. Then, I'm gonna give you another chance to be honest. She paused. And that's when it happened. She turned defensive. Well, if you already know who it is, why are we playing games? Exactly the reaction I expected. I smiled, small, cruel. Because I wanted to see if you'd lie. Her face shifted. Anger. Embarrassment. The moment she realized she was caught and couldn't even bluff her way out. Okay, she said. It was Ryan. From work. I didn't even blink. Just stared. Why lie? She shrugged. I didn't want to make things worse. You've been unstable lately. I didn't want you to blow up over nothing. Then why not just answer the call? She sighed. He was calling to ask something about a shift. I didn't think it was important. I watched her squirm. Watched her recalibrate her tone. The fake apology on her lips. I'm sorry, she said. I should have just told you. And I nodded. But deep down, I wasn't satisfied with her answer. Because it was never just about the call. It was about the lies she told before the lies she told to cover the other lie. And now that I had confirmation, I wasn't angry. I was ready for the next move. Almost a week passed after the Ryan discovery, and not much changed between us. That was the part that struck me the most, how quiet everything got. Not the kind of quiet that follows healing or forgiveness. The kind of quiet that hides a deeper noise. The type that feels like silence only because something has already collapsed and no one said it out loud yet. She didn't apologize again. She didn't try to explain. She just continued on, like we were two strangers who happened to share a house, a bed, and a few responsibilities too big to divide. We stopped speaking unless it was necessary. Conversations turned into logistical exchanges, kids' appointments, schedules, who left the stove on. The kind of stuff that sounds like life but isn't living. And even though she knew I knew, about Ryan, the initials on the dashboard, the phone call, the lie she gave me without hesitation, she never brought it up. Never said his name again. It was as if she was waiting for me to forget. But I don't forget. I just wait. The resentment building between us was a ticking bomb. I could feel it every time we passed each other in the hallway or sat across from each other at the table. She barely looked at me anymore, not like someone scared, but like someone done. Like someone whose bags were already packed in her head. So one afternoon, while I was painting the upstairs hallway, something inside me snapped. Not loud. Just final. I put the brush down, grabbed my phone, and texted her. She was at work, supposedly. What are we even doing anymore? We don't talk. We don't act like a couple. We just exist. I can't do this forever. Something has to change. It wasn't a threat. It was a pressure point. She responded about 20 minutes later. I watched the notification pop up and just sat there staring at it before opening it. That hurt to read. Of course it did. Because truth always hurts more than the lie that came before it. Then came the follow-up. I think I just need some space. That line hit me like a glass of water in the face, not because I was surprised, but because it confirmed everything I had been watching unfold in silence. I need space. That's the phrase they use when they're already emotionally elsewhere. When they want to explore someone else without the burden of officially ending things. When they want a guilt-free buffer zone for behavior they've already committed to. Amy didn't need space. She needed freedom, and didn't want to admit that she'd already taken it without asking. But I didn't respond to the message. Not because I was stunned. Not because I was broken. Because I wanted her to wonder how I'd take it. I left it on read. Let her sit in that discomfort. Let her spend the rest of her workday wondering if I was packing, planning, or preparing something worse. She came home late. I pride myself on control. I don't yell. I don't throw things. I don't raise my voice unless it's intentional, unless it's calculated to land like a punch without leaving a bruise. But even a man like me has limits. And that night, I hit mine. She came home like a stranger again, late, vague, evasive. Something about her phone rang different. The way she glanced at it and smiled to herself, like there was a second conversation running under the surface that I wasn't invited to. She sat on the couch like she hadn't asked for space 2 days ago. Like I hadn't caught her in a dozen lies. And I snapped. Not in silence. Not this time. I cursed at her. Loud. Direct. Angry. It wasn't poetic, and it wasn't strategic. It was real. You think I'm just going to sit here and pretend I don't know what's going on? You think this house is AF *****ing hotel and I'm some dumbass bellhop waiting for you to come back from your affair? She stood there, stunned. And for once, she didn't have a script. That's when I made the call. Ryan. I didn't wait. I didn't pace around deciding whether or not I should. I pulled out my phone, found the number I'd saved, and hit dial. He answered after 3 rings. His voice was calm, fake calm, like someone trying to sound surprised when they already know who's calling. I didn't waste time. You been talking to Amy? A pause. She's my coworker, he said. Just a friend. That's it. I laughed. If I find out otherwise, I'm calling your job. You think I won't call corporate and have you fired? Don't test me. He hung up. Didn't even bother with a goodbye. Coward. But it gets better, he must have told her about the call right away, because within 5 minutes of the line going dead, she texted me. Did you just call Ryan? I replied, yeah. Her response. I want you out of the house before I get home. No more discussion. No attempt to explain, defend, lie, just an order. That told me everything I needed to know. She wasn't sorry. She was defensive. Not because I crossed a line, but because I stepped into the world she built behind my back and kicked the door off its hinges. I refused, of course. This was my house too. I wasn't going to scurry out like a beaten dog because she was embarrassed I caught her mid-play. But she didn't come alone. Less than an hour later, her parents showed up. And they weren't empty-handed, they brought our kids. She'd driven straight to their place, put on her best broken daughter face, and cried about how I was aggressive, paranoid, and maybe even dangerous. She told them she didn't feel safe. That I might hurt her. That she was scared to text them because of how I spoke when I flipped out. She rewrote the entire script. When they walked through the door, I could feel the judgment radiating off her mother. No questions. No attempt at fairness. Just fire and brimstone aimed straight at me. She doesn't feel safe around you, her mom snapped. She's scared to text me because of you. I opened my mouth. Started to speak. Didn't matter. They weren't interested in my side. To them, I was already cast, controlling boyfriend, unstable, emotionally dangerous. They'd already decided who I was before walking in the door. And I knew nothing I said would change that. So I stopped talking. Sat in silence. Not defeated, just done wasting breath. The room was awkward as hell. You could cut the tension with a dull butter knife. No one looked at each other. My kids sat near the door, confused and quiet. Her parents hovered like bodyguards. And I waited. Then she walked in. No shame. No humility. Just confidence and a kind of manufactured fragility that disgusted me. I want to talk, she said. Privately. We went into the garage. I didn't even wait for her to speak. You had to bring your parents into this? I snapped. We're adults. This could have been handled between us. She looked away. Didn't answer. I kept going. You tell them I'm dangerous. Scary. Is that what you've reduced me to now that you're cornered? She finally met my eyes. You need to leave, she said. They're not going anywhere until you do. And in that moment, I realized it was no longer about lies or cheating. It was about power. She didn't just want to move on, she wanted to erase the version of me that knew her truth. And I wasn't going to make it easy. After nearly an hour of arguing in the garage, after being surrounded in my own home by judgmental in-laws and the cold stare of a woman I no longer recognized, I finally gave in. Not because I believed I was wrong. Not because I thought she deserved peace. But because dragging my kids through the fallout wasn't the kind of revenge I was after. So I pulled myself together. Walked back into the house with my jaw tight and my hands steady. I knelt down, kissed my children on their foreheads, told them I'd see them soon. They didn't ask questions, just looked at me with that same quiet confusion I'd seen in their eyes for weeks now. Then I left. No bags. No shouting. No slammed doors. Just silence. She got what she wanted. Her space. Her house. Her carefully staged story that now had a complete arc, controlling boyfriend finally gone, safety restored. I let her enjoy the ending, for a while. A month passed. I stayed quiet, mostly. Kept contact minimal. Focused on seeing the kids. Ignored her texts unless they were necessary. But in the back of my mind, something kept digging at me, a question that refused to die no matter how hard I tried to bury it. Was it Ryan? Was it really him? The circumstantial evidence was already a mountain, the initials, the call, the shower, the lies, the cover-up, the sudden need for space. But I'd never caught them physically. Never had the photo, the text thread, the smoking gun. Still, I couldn't shake it. So I did what I always do, I planned. I reached out to an old friend. Someone discreet. Someone with no connection to Amy's world. I asked her for a favor. Find someone who works at Amy's job. Or says they used to. Add them on social. Pretend you're an old coworker from another location. Just see if they talk. Be casual. It was a shot in the dark. Risky. But worth a try. And somehow, it worked. She found someone, a bubbly girl with public posts, lots of selfies, too many hashtags. Added her on Facebook. Said she used to work for the same company in a different city. Made up a manager name, talked about bad uniforms and break room gossip. The girl bought it instantly. Started chatting like they were long-lost coworkers reunited. So I gave my friend the green light. Bring up Amy. Don't mention me. Just drop her name like you're asking if she still works there. Then stay quiet. Let her talk. And sure enough, she did. My friend screenshotted the exchange and sent it to me without commentary. It was all there. Oh yeah, she's cool. She been messing around with the kitchen manager though, Ryan. LOL. Just like that. No suspicion. No hesitation. Just gossip, casually tossed out like it meant nothing. Like it wasn't the final piece of something I'd been building since the day Amy first whispered that name across the kitchen table. Now, was that proof? No. It wasn't a picture of them in bed. It wasn't a text thread of sexts or a video from a coworker's Snapchat. But it was one more weight on a scale that had already tipped. It was confirmation, not legal, but emotional. It told me everything I needed to know. Because coworkers don't talk like that about nothing. They don't LOL about affairs unless the fire's already been burning long enough for the smoke to become office folklore. She could still deny it, of course. She'd always been good at that. But now I wasn't asking anymore. I knew. And worse? Now she didn't even know what I knew. That was power. And I was done giving it away. It's strange where life leaves you sometimes. After all the screaming, lying, and unraveling, you'd expect the ending to be dramatic. But ours? It just settled. Like ash. Where we stand today is something I never expected, not back when I was threatening to call corporate on Ryan, not when her parents were standing in my living room calling me dangerous, and definitely not when I walked out of my own house under pressure like a criminal leaving a crime scene. Now. We co-parent. Surprisingly well, actually. We have a rhythm. Schedules are tight, drop-offs are smooth. We rarely argue about the kids. If anything, we're better at raising them now than we were when we were pretending to be in love. We still talk. Sometimes we flirt. Sometimes, and I'm not proud of it, we sleep together. It's not romance. Not reconciliation. Just leftover heat. A habit neither of us has fully kicked. I think we both know it's not love, but there's still a familiarity there, a kind of tired magnetism that pulls us close when neither of us has anywhere else to fall for the night. And here's the part that gets most people, I see her almost every day. I'm around enough to know that she's not seeing anyone. Not dating. Not texting someone else behind the scenes. At least, not now. But we never talk about what happened. That time period. The lies, the suspicions, the shouting matches, the night her parents came with our kids as backup soldiers in her war story. Off limits. It's like there's an unspoken agreement that we both signed, without ink, that says, we pretend that part never happened. And I let it be. Because honestly, I still don't have confirmation that she cheated on me. Not technically. There was never a confession. No screenshots. No recordings. Just a string of perfectly aligned red flags, half-truths, and other people's gossip. At best, maybe it was emotional cheating. At worst, it was physical. Maybe it was just mutual interest, unacted upon. Maybe they stopped themselves. Maybe they didn't. I'll never know. And the truth? I don't care to anymore. That version of me, the one who needed the truth, burned out. Somewhere between calling Ryan and walking out of my own home, I lost the appetite for confirmation. I realized that the truth doesn't always come with receipts. Sometimes it just sits there, in the space between denials and quiet exits. And that has to be enough. If you ask me what I did learn, I'd say this: don't date people in the healthcare industry unless you're ready for a soap opera. Especially not the ones working nights. That place breeds emotional affairs like mold in a wet basement. But more seriously, Amy wasn't a monster. Let me make that clear. She was a good woman, when she wanted to be. She had days where she went harder for me than anyone in my own bloodline ever has. She showed up for me in ways no one else ever did. There were mornings when she made me feel seen. Nights when she carried more than her weight. And for a long time, I thought that made her untouchable. But it didn't. And now I think I understand why. She had scars. Deep ones. Unresolved traumas from childhood, teenage years, things I only ever got glimpses of when she let her guard slip. She carried abandonment like a backpack, clung to attention like it was oxygen, and buried pain beneath performance. And when someone like that feels unloved, even for a second, they don't process it like the rest of us. They escape. Even if it means creating more pain on the way out. That doesn't excuse it. But it explains it. And in the end, I don't hate her. I just don't believe her anymore. And that's its own kind of peace. Sometimes the most satisfying endings are the ones you never have to lift a finger to create. After I left the house, not defeated, but removed, I expected some fallout. Emotional, maybe. Financial, probably. But what I didn't expect was the speed at which her carefully constructed version of life began to unravel. And all I had to do was step aside and let it collapse. Amy had always presented herself as someone in control. Capable. Confident when needed. But I'd lived with her long enough to know that underneath the performance was something much shakier, a girl still trying to outrun her teenage insecurities, still waiting for the world to give her the kind of validation her childhood never delivered. I used to ignore it. Used to think, we all have our stuff, and just kept moving. But looking back now, it's clear, she was never built for storms. And unfortunately for her, she created one. It started slowly. Quiet signs of strain. Little things. Our kids would come over and let things slip. Mom says the car might have to go back to the dealership. Or, we couldn't go out to eat because she had to pay a bill. I didn't press. I didn't ask questions. I listened. Then came the sign in the yard. The house we bought together, the one I put most of the down payment on, the one she took over after telling me I wasn't needed anymore, now had a crooked, for sale, sign leaning just slightly to the left, like it was ashamed to be there. I drove by it once. Not on purpose. The route was familiar. I glanced at it through the windshield and kept driving. I didn't stop. Didn't slow down. But I noticed. A few days later, I heard through someone else that she'd signed the final papers on Sunday night. Sold it. Let it go. Couldn't keep up with the mortgage without the salary she once bragged about. Apparently, her new job didn't pay nearly enough to maintain the lifestyle she thought she could manage alone. And why should it? 3 months after I left, she was fired from her position at the facility, the same job where all the drama began. The same place where Ryan became more than a name. Officially, they cited performance issues. Unofficially, her bosses weren't happy. Said she didn't take initiative. Said she was distracted. Not leadership material. Imagine that. She was unemployed for about 2 months. Burned through what little savings she had. Then landed another job, one that paid significantly less. Barely enough to cover rent, let alone a mortgage. And even then, the hours were unstable. The benefits were weak. Suddenly, life didn't look so picture-perfect anymore. She started talking about restructuring. Our kids mentioned she was moving back in with her parents. Full circle. The same house she used to complain about. The same roof she once said she couldn't wait to get away from. Now she was back under it, dragging her suitcase and her pride up the same steps she once slammed as a teenager. And still, I said nothing. I paid what I owed for child support. On time. No more. No less. I didn't rub it in. Didn't post anything. Didn't even talk about it to friends. But inside, I felt the quiet justice of it all. It wasn't revenge. Not exactly. I hadn't sabotaged her. I didn't manipulate her downfall. I didn't call her job. I didn't send evidence to anyone. I just stood back. And what fell because it was built on lies. And at the center of it all, Amy, a woman who couldn't stand to be without attention. I noticed early on in our relationship, if I didn't give her energy, she'd find someone else who would. It didn't always mean sex. Sometimes it was as simple as a compliment from a stranger or a long conversation with a male coworker that felt harmless. But it fed something inside her, something deep. Something hollow. She needed to be seen. Needed to be wanted. And if that didn't come from me, she'd find it elsewhere. In hindsight, it's no mystery why she ended up where she did. She tried so hard to be liked, by coworkers, cliques, social groups, everyone. It was a need. An addiction. She used to tell me that half the women at her job were secretly sleeping with the same few men. Married or not. Relationships didn't matter. It was all about validation. Status. Who could get attention first and hold on to it longest? I think she got pulled into that without realizing it. She wanted to fit in. And when you're that desperate to belong, you forget who you are, or what you're risking. In the end, I don't think she meant to destroy anything. She just couldn't stop herself from chasing the next person who made her feel like she mattered. And when the dust settled, she was left with less than what she started with. No home. Less income. Living back in the place she swore she'd never return to. And all I could do was watch. Not gleefully. Not spitefully. Just, silently. Because some things don't need commentary. They speak for themselves. When I say she expected something different, I don't mean it lightly. I know she did. Amy didn't just make decisions to get me out of the house or to chase something new, she made long-term moves based on short-term feelings. That's the real tragedy of it. She thought she was making an upgrade. Trading the predictable for the exciting. Cutting away the dead weight so she could run toward whatever she thought freedom looked like. I think in her mind, the plan was simple. Ryan would stick around. That job would turn into a career. She'd afford the bills, manage the mortgage, be the hero of her own story. She'd prove to everyone, me, her family, her coworkers, that she didn't need anyone. That she could do it all herself. That choosing a different path didn't mean falling apart. But none of that happened. She kicked me out and within months, lost the job. Lost the house. Lost whatever momentum she thought she had. And as for Ryan, he's long gone. I know because I've checked. Call it morbid curiosity or something darker, but every now and then I find myself pulling up his Facebook profile. Just to see. And wouldn't you know it? New girl. New profile pictures. New relationship statuses. He's moved on. Probably didn't even leave a note. Which makes me wonder, what was all this even for? Why do people blow up stable, if imperfect, lives for people they've known 3 weeks at work? That's what I don't understand about cheating, or cheaters in general. They make long-term decisions during the honeymoon phase of a fling. They start planning futures with people they haven't even seen on a bad day. They gamble everything for someone who smiled at them across a break room table. And then when it all crumbles, they act surprised. I'm not bitter about it anymore. I'm just baffled. There was a time when I needed answers. Needed to know if she really cheated, when it started, how far it went. Now, I just see the math. And it doesn't add up. She lost more than she gained. Ryan traded her in. The job dried up. And the house she fought so hard to control? Sold. Gone. Meanwhile, I've been good. I haven't jumped back into dating. Not seriously. I've met a few women here and there, 3, to be exact. None of them went anywhere. A couple fizzled. One wasn't ready for anything serious. And maybe I wasn't either. But I'll tell you this. I'm happier now than I've ever been. Not because I've moved on, in some fairy tale way. Not because I've found someone new. But because I've found space. Freedom. Peace. I go where I want, when I want. No fights about plans. No checking in with someone who secretly resents me. No worrying about whether my partner's in the bathroom texting someone else while saying she's got a stomach ache. Just quiet. Just me. I still love Amy in my own way. Maybe I always will. She's the mother of my children. There were good years, real ones. Memories that aren't poisoned, even if the ending was. But love doesn't mean loyalty after betrayal. And forgiveness doesn't mean foolishness. I've learned a lot from all of this. About people. About red flags. About how to listen not just to what someone says, but how they say it. And more importantly, how to watch for what they don't say. So yeah, I guess this is my story. The long version. Apologies if it dragged. I just figured if I was going to share, I might as well tell it all. Thanks for reading. And if you're someone who's been cheated on, emotionally, physically, however it played out, let me say this. You don't always get closure. But sometimes, life gives it to you anyway. You just have to stand still long enough to let the truth come find you. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe for more incredible stories like this one.